Irish Nation, thank you for joining Under the Golden Dome. Another episode. I'll stop. Fuck. Um,
Start over.
Self-editing.
you're Under the Golden Dome with Wes Pritchett, Michael Stonebreaker, Frank Stams, your host from the 1988 Notre Dame National Championship team. We have a very special guest with us today, Colonel Kurtz. From aka Dave Butler, the pride of Toledo, Ohio, straight out of Toledo St. John's, the Titans, voted most funniest human being in his senior class, a year ahead of me when I was in school, Wes and I, and a mentor, a great example to me, and a real Notre Dame guy. So Dave, thank you for joining, or thank you for being under the Golden Dome.
Well, thank you, Frank. I think one of my favorite personal facts is that you and I are born on the exact same day, same year, July 17th, 1965, along with, so I consider you my brother, so I figure I have four brothers. Because as you know, my first three the first three boys in my family are all born July 17th.
What?
Yes. Me, Dan, and Brian are born July 17th, and my dad is born July 18th.
Wow.
And Frank is.
I don't even know what to make of that. Holy cow.
We could get in People magazine or something.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cultish. That's like straight out of Damien.
Your parents were consistent, huh?
Yeah, well, just fast forward 3 months. I think that was their anniversary. Ring the bell.
So Dave, we just simply have a conversation amongst us talking about Notre Dame football, analyzing the game they played, previewing the game coming up. In this case, it was Miami last week, and then they have Louisville. And then we try to apply, hold Notre Dame, not so much hold Notre Dame, but, talk about the standard that, we played under. And I say we, you're certainly a part of that team as much as anybody. And, I love to recognize the guys that were there, year, 2, 3 years prior, because, that's how guys like myself, Wes, and Mike, learn to compete, learn the toughness at Notre Dame. It just doesn't happen overnight. And so, so I'm glad you can join us. And then we try to take those, experiences that we had from that 88 championship team and, maybe help, serve as a board of directors for Marcus Freeman and the staff and whoever else will listen to our bullshit. So, and have some fun at it. So, the Miami game, I know we were there together. We watched it. It was great seeing your mom and dad there. Boy, they look great. And your two brothers were there, and Claire, your wife, was there. I mean, that's awesome. Maybe you could talk a little bit about, coming back, and being part of the Notre Dame family. I know you have your son there, Liam. I mean, what's that like?
Well, listen, I mean, it's not an experience unique to me, that's for sure. I mean, I think you see it. Like Notre Dame's got a sense of community like no other place. And it's funny, the cool thing about Notre Dame when you have a student there, all the parents go to the games. There's a reason we don't have a homecoming game. Obviously, they're always sold out, but all the parents go to the game. And so because of that, you get to know your not only obviously your kids as they grow up, but their buddies and their parents. And so we've made a lot of friends that way. But it's funny you say that. Like my son's super excited about going back to college all the time. I said, I never felt like that. I always had a stomach ache because we had 2-a-days or we had, something that was super intense. And I tell the guys around here, there's a reason people hire athletes. It's not because they can run fast and jump high. It's because they've exhibited over the course of time the ability to endure what in retrospect looks impossible. Like when you think back on what we did, it's almost sort of unbelievable.
Kind of like Colonel Kurtz in the horror.
Right, right, exactly. Well, I remember, and by the way, I've always felt I have no complaints about, anything. And even on the player's right side, I just have never really had an issue with anything. But I do remember Tom Riley, another teammate, doing an economics paper um, about the value of the scholarship. I don't remember the numbers exactly, but I think it was like $1.15 an hour for home games and 85 cents an hour for like away games. And it was sort of like, 60 to 80 hours a week is what we spent on football, because people just think about practice. But as you know, you're hurt every day. You got to go to therapy 3 times a day. We had
Yeah.
to walk across camp.
You're
Then you had
concussed.
to lift 3 times a week. Then you had like all this stuff. So
Film.
it's great going back there, but I still sometimes have a stomach ache, I think, as much as.
I'm with you, but it was an experience that none of us would trade for anything.
No, God, no.
Yeah.
No.
But so your thoughts, on, up to this point, having opened up with A&M on the road, great showing there, finished the game, played well. Next week, a bit of, I'm not gonna say a bit, but just, a devastating loss to NIU, and then just kicking Purdue's ass, and then coming back and winning, uh, against Miami. Where do you see the Notre Dame program, and what'd you think of the Miami game?
I mean, I think your partners on this, the triumvirate, the three amigos probably have better insight. I wouldn't say I have any great insight. I would just say my impression of the program is um, we're in as good of a spot as we've been in a long time. I think we're loaded with talent. I mean, by the way,
I agree.
times to Notre Dame guys going to the NFL and way outperform expectations. Look at Kyron Williams right now. He's a good player for us. Like, I think we're loaded with talent.
Let's talk about. I actually want to talk about that a little bit. My kids brought that up this past weekend. We watched Kyron Williams do the somersault into the end zone on the pass that he caught, which was unbelievable. And the guy's having a great career. Why do you think the Notre Dame guys that don't have great there's a number of guys that didn't have great careers at Notre Dame that go on and have really good pro careers? I mean, you can look at that two ways. One is obviously we're stacked, right? And another way to look at it is, are we not developing our talent or using our talent properly? Or are we just so talented that guys aren't getting opportunities? I don't know. It's an interesting question.
Well, I'll jump in. So I don't necessarily equate, having a great pro career or having a pro career with being a great college player or a great athlete. It's, there's a lot that goes into that. A lot of it's being fortunate, being, and all that. But looking back at, our time, again, drawing some comparisons, we were loaded with talent. When I got to Notre Dame, we were loaded with talent. And, and I had coaches, remember Glenn Mason, who recruited me to Ohio State, said the Notre Dame athlete was a different kind of athlete. It was a special athlete. And, when I got there, I mean, God, I looked at our offensive line and I was like, wow. I mean, some of the guys that played, like Eric Dorsey, I mean, you're not going to see a better athlete or a specimen like that anywhere.
Larry.
And you see guys going into different, I think about Kent Graham, he was a drop back quarterback, and he was at Notre Dame with us under Holtz's veer offense,
Right.
his hips, he was a drop back quarterback. He wasn't ever going to turn the corner. And, he transferred and went to, I think, Ohio State and didn't play there, then wound up, you turn around, he's starting for the New York Giants, because that was a system that he fit into.
Yeah.
Played like 10 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, my gut is like, I don't know because it's sort of, I would just say this, it just seems to be somewhat of a consistent pattern. Let me put it this way. Guys don't leave Notre Dame and then not too often are they like just wipeouts unless there's injuries and stuff like that. Like, God, going back to Mark Bavaro, my God. I mean, we knew how good he was.
Right.
We knew how
I
good
like
he
to
was.
say he was Gronkowski before there was a Gronkowski.
Oh, way before. Oh, bravo.
Belichick loved him.
Oh God. Oh, who did who told me? Somebody told me something Belichick said about him recently. One of the Maras, it was like Chris was saying,
Bavaro's the way you think of that. Bavaro's the only person I know that spoke less than Stoney.
right.
Well, it's funny you say that. I've run into Mark Bavaro a couple times over the years at different events, and I always tell him, I said, "Man, you and I, we should have hung out together." And I never got time.
Just stared at each other.
Look at each other.
Just gazed at one another.
You just kind of looked at each other like, who's going to make the first move?
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. It was an unspoken connection.
Standoff, Mexican standoff.
But yeah, I mean, just going back to state of the program. So that's my impression. I think it's not like we get these recruits and then they're not really that good of an athlete. Like these guys show up in the pros. It's sort of unbelievable how talented, how much talent we have. And obviously, everything always goes back to sort of the QB position, but there's a lot that surrounds that.
The QBs, Riley Leonard's getting better. He had a good game. I thought, he made some mistakes against Miami. The accuracy still isn't there. It was less than 50% in that game, but that deep ball showed up. And you talk about, I watched it. Those were laser strikes downfield, hit him on stride. We can all see that he's a runner, and that's going to give Louisville some problems going forward because they've been hurt by the quarterback run up until this day. But yeah, no, I agree with you. But the quarterback position is getting better.
Yeah, no, I think that's, listen, I think it's right. I think ironically, he even though he came out of Duke, and I think he came in under Cutcliffe, did he not? I mean,
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure. But he just was, it was never really a passing offense. I mean, I think, what did he throw, like 3 touchdowns last year? Something crazy like that.
He played, remember, he got hurt last year.
No, I know.
Then there's anything the 88 team teaches us, you don't have to be a passing offense to win the national championship.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. And by the way, the guy is an extraordinary. I mean, when I'm watching him run, I'm like, well, there's no way he's going to outrun that guy, and then he'll get hit and he doesn't get knocked down. I mean, that guy's unbelievably talented. I was talking to Brian Radigan. I don't know, you might have crossed over with him. Stoney, did you? I don't know.
Yeah, he played linebacker also. I know Brian.
Yeah, and so his son dates my daughter, which is a whole nother podcast. But I was chatting with him. He's like, he was telling me about his ankle and everything, and when he showed up, I said, sort of what the hell happened. Long story short, he just checked his ankle and said, we're just not going to let you play on this. Maybe other places would. We're going to do surgery. And so, but he said, his high school films, like he's doing 360 dunks from the foul.
He's a great basketball player, apparently.
Yeah. Insane athlete. So I think they're loaded. I think that the same things you guys think and everyone else thinks, which is we got a great staff. We're loaded. We're very fast. We're as talented as we've ever been in the defensive backfield. Other than when you guys were there.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I watched that A&M game, and those guys ran the running backs. He ran the ball very well. And what was impressive to me about him, he was strong. He was breaking, guys were hitting him. He was running through tacklers, and he had the breakaway speed as well. And he got stronger as the game went along. I think those running backs at Notre Dame are as good as any in the nation. Riley Leonard's coming along. It's the offensive line that really needs to play with its hair on fire starting the game. And, they did a nice job. They got better in that game. And I know, Dave, we talked about this before, the chemistry and how young they are, but somehow that needs to pull together and pull together fast.
Yeah, I'd be curious what you guys think. Like, I don't know. We talked about this as well, which is, Coach Holtz, when you came in as a freshman, if you're a skill position guy, he'd say, you better be able to start as a freshman or you're probably not going to play here. Doesn't mean you have to start, but you better be able to. For the offensive linemen, they expect them to play in their third year, maybe, and then they'd get a fifth year. They expect them to sort of play for a couple of years. Playing 3 years was a lot. And it's because of the complexity of game and I think some of the physical stuff, but as much as anything, the complexity. I mean, those guys sat there and did walkthroughs every time you walked through the ACC. They were doing walkthroughs.
Yeah, mentally going over the offensive. What are they called, Dave?
The offensive play.
Assignments. If this
the
guy's
assignments,
because
because there is no play. There is no play. It's a matrix. Like you call the dive, it's 15 different plays to the guard.
Therefore, if this guy's here, that guy's there, it changes. It could be 3 blocks for every alignment.
I think
exactly. That's why, by the way, that's why, what was it? Jason Kelsey was so good. It wasn't because he was the best blocker. He was a hell of a proficient blocker. You watch that guy, he would come to the line. He made all the calls where the safety was, who had who, dude, you got this linebacker. And, I just don't think people appreciate that offensive line, how complex that position is.
You're absolutely right. Those guys got to be truly very smart, is especially at center position or the guard that's calling out, setting the fronts for the offense. It's the defensive line that those guys are the stupid guys. Those are the guys. those are the guys that you just put a rock in their right hand or in their left hand and tell them and that tells them which way to go.
Right.
Well, if you're going to make a mistake, make it going full speed. I mean, that was kind of how we all bailed ourselves out on defense. But I want to go back to Riley Leonard real quick because, the guy he played 3 or 4 games at Duke last year. Then he sits out. So he sits out the majority of the year or, a higher percentage of it. Then he sits out all spring. Then they bring in all these, the 3 transfer wide receivers. So, I mean, then you throw him into the fire at Texas A&M, and it's the first game he started in a new system. He hasn't played in a year. I mean,
that's a great point, Wes. Wes, that's a great point. I mean, I think everybody's focused on the fact that how do we pay this guy $1.5 million? And it's like, hey, you're right. But by the way, he hasn't played football.
Here's what we know. He's a leader.
Well, go ahead.
He's a leader because they voted him captain, right? So the kids obviously respect him. He's a good athlete. He's certainly a competitor. I mean, I think I was a little hard on him too, but I mean, that's a big task that he's running into,
that's a great point. Cause I frankly have glossed over that myself.
And you guys know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how long you've been playing. It takes a while, to get comfortable with the group that you play with. I don't care who
you can't simulate game speed. You can practice in the spring. You can practice in August. You can practice all you want, but getting out there in the game, it's a completely different dynamic and a pace of the game.
Yeah, I think this.
I agree, man.
I think very coached. They're going to be ready for Notre Dame. I mean, Brahms 13-4 since he took over. They beat us up there last year, caught us after 2 or 3 tough games. But like we've talked about before, we need to come out. We need to be ready, and we need to come out in the first quarter. We're not going to have the luxury of kind of getting better as the game goes on. I think we're going to have to be ready when we walk out there.
These guys are nasty on defense.
Yeah, they really are. They are
very athletic, very aggressive. But listen, we got a great coordinator. I'm, and they're, by the way, they're ranked ahead of us.
Right.
These are the teams that everyone thought were going to walk over. Like, this is high-end Division I college football, man. Like we were saying, like you can't, if you're going to play at 93%, you're going to lose most of these games. Like you just can't play at that level, especially when it's a Super Bowl for the other team. Like you can't do it.
And you need your defense to come out these first, maybe half of the season with the offense, a new environment for the offense. And you need the defense to shut guys down and give your offense as many opportunities as they can to get up to game speed. And your defense needs to be your anchor until the
Right.
offense picks up their rhythm.
I totally agree with you. And I think if you look, the defense has really played pretty well. I was looking at a stat of the proficiency of the quarterbacks in the 4 games that we played. And I mean, Notre Dame's defense is no quarterbacks thrown for over 100 and I think 95 yards. And the other 3 guys were like low hundreds. So, I mean, we haven't.
They're keeping them in the game.
Yeah, what's the most amount of points we've given up? I mean, Purdue, was it 14 against NIU? What did Texas A&M score?
Well, yeah, NIU I think was
16.
was it
Give up
16, 15 or something like that.
That's the most points we've given up in a game. I mean, I think the defense is keeping us in the game, Stoney. I think you're right. And I think they are playing well. And I think it has a lot to do with what Dave's talking about. Our secondary is long, they're fast, talented. I think the linebackers.
I'll tell you what, the linebackers are freaking
No, linebackers are great. The young are playing great. I mean, they're hitting people. They're aggressive. They play downhill. I
love their defense. I love it. I just think, listen, I think against NIU and Miami, did you see, Frank, you commented on it at the game. Their offensive line was huge. And I think, listen, these are guys from the Midwest. They're talented, big, root hogs, as they used to call them. And like, I just think you had 2 pretty good offensive lines there. Like, we had a hard time busting. I actually think we're gonna have more success putting pressure on the QB and getting in the backfield against Louisville than we did against those 2 teams. Everyone just assumes because it's some mid-America school, they're not that good. And they are really, I thought those are 2 really good offensive lines myself,
And I think it goes back to the fact that the kids are playing for the MAC they buy in for 5 years, they stick around, they're senior guys. You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't have freshmen. They're all very seasoned senior guys, and that makes a huge difference.
Right.
You're under the Golden Dome with Wes Pritchett, former linebacker, University of Notre Dame, Frank Stams, linebacker, college Hall of Famer Michael Stonebreaker, and our special guest Dave Butler, a linebacker and a mentor to us all, and the world's funniest guy forever. Talking Notre Dame football, talking about how they're experimenting on the Miami of Ohio offensive linemen in their ag department, shooting them with all kinds of player enhancement type stuff. Of course, I say that.
I want to edit that out.
Yeah. Completely joking, but yeah, they were an impressive group. And right, you're gonna see lines like that at SC. You're gonna see some of the top colleges that, a lot of great offensive linemen come out of the Mid-American Conference. And yeah, they played well together, had good chemistry. Looking at that game, I think they outrushed or damn near outrushed Notre Dame in the first half. Score was 7-3. And I look at that game and really what was, things that you can improve on is time of possession. It was about equal. And really, Notre Dame should dominate the time of possession in a game like that. I think the defense is playing well up into this point, really not giving up any points into the. I don't think anybody's cracked 20 points on them this year. So if one thing we know from that 88 team, that's a big element, ingredient to a championship team. So, and we see the quarterback getting better. Louisville, what I think they're going to do is, and you guys mentioned, they're going to play. I think they're going to play a little bit faster than Miami. I don't think they'll be any tougher, but they're going to play a little bit faster, and that's a challenge for the quarterback.
They also had they've got wide receivers and running backs and quarterbacks. I mean, all these schools like Louisville, for whatever reason, they've got NIL money and they've been very active in the transfer portal. So they got guys that can move and make a difference. So we'll see.
But like you said, Stoney, I think that's a super important point. Like, the defense listen, we've got this like neonatal offensive line. You know, I mean, these guys, they're just young. And, you know, basically a new quarterback who, like you said, didn't play for us last year, didn't play in the spring. There's a lot of talent over there, but the defense is the strength of this team, and they're going to have to set the tone. You know, frankly, get some turnovers, be super disruptive. Like they're capable of doing it, but I think you're right, Michael. Like, you know, if the defense doesn't do that and they're capable of doing it, you know, it's going to be hard. You know, we can't.
When it brings me back to '88, I remember when our offense would turn the ball over, and I remember jogging out onto the field. We were super excited to get back on the field. We used to joke with the offense, like, good job, Tony. Way to go, Tony. Let us get you out of this one. You know what I mean? It was another opportunity for us to get out there and prove something to ourselves that, we need the 3 and out right now. We're going to go out there, make 3 tackles and get off the field, So
Yeah,
that's the attitude your defense has to have.
Yeah.
I think, Stoney, Frank, we look at each other in the huddle. I mean, it wasn't just us. Zorich, Boo Williams, Todd Light, Pat Terrell. I mean,
It's unbelievable.
huddle them. You call the plays. I mean, I didn't have any doubt that the guys that I was talking to were going to beat the guys in front of them. We did have that attitude, and we did, for the most part, just go out there and out physical everybody we played. And you're right. I think we like the challenge of a short field after a turnover or whatever. I mean, I know, like, you look at all the big games, Michigan, Miami, USC, West Virginia that year, we absolutely bullied the offense in all of those games. I mean, Miami, you could probably argue them. I don't know that we bullied them, but none of those offenses out physical, our defense.
We taunted Miami.
What's that?
Didn't we get in a fight with Miami?
Yeah, I think we did.
That's been documented.
Wasn't that you? What I said, wasn't that you, Wes? You told me that you stepped on Huerta's foot during the fight. You went to search out the
out, and I ran straight to the kicker. And I had his one
bad like him win here.
I had his one. He had a single bar. I grabbed it, punching him, stepped on his foot.
That was so smart. That was.
Anyways,
Notre Dame's breaking out the green jerseys.
They are?
Oh yeah, for this game.
Oh God, I hate that.
What?
That's just death if there ever was one.
Now, I had the opportunity at Notre Dame to play every other year, so I was never given the opportunity to wear a green jersey during. Did you guys ever bust out the green jersey?
Well, we busted. Here's the thing: they busted out the green. They warmed up in the blue jerseys against Southern Cal one year, back in the day. I don't know what. And they came out with the green jerseys, and we won, and we upset Southern Cal. And I don't think.
No, Dave, you're remembering a different story of the green jersey.
Well, yeah, you're talking about. I think you're talking about the 1977 national championship team when USC was #1. Notre Dame was wearing the blue jerseys, and they came out in the green. That was the first time they'd ever done it.
Okay.
I remember that as a kid. Like I was losing it.
That's legendary.
Yeah, that was awesome. And then
you're shaking your head at a different green jersey story. Right?
Yeah, it's lost some of its sheen, I think, over the time. I think we did it against BC of all people and lost. Like we had a couple.
Well, I think I recall. I don't know if I was part of this. It's hard to tell. Or shortly before that, one coach was beating the team soundly at halftime and then broke out the green jersey. So it's a little anticlimactic going into
once it's safe to come out.
Yeah, I think
I'm not too psyched about hearing that.
Devin, I don't think the record is great.
Yeah, I just think it like
distraction.
I think it's almost a distraction, and it's like they don't need that to get pumped up for Louisville. I mean, come on,
You need a jersey color. I'm getting real fired up.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be. Yeah, I don't know.
That's a good point. Does it need, I mean, you got a young team, do you need to add any more emotion or, distraction to the game? Those guys we talk, I listen to Marcus
Is
talk.
it a distraction, Frank, to the game? Do they know anything about the green jersey? Do they pump it up like to the team saying, "Oh, this is a big deal. We're wearing green jerseys"? I mean, I don't,
No,
you know.
but no, you're right. But
The fact that
I
you
was in
know about
school.
it, Frank, like we used to just, the times it happened with us, we just came in the locker room and they were there. We didn't
Right.
know it was going to happen. But now it sounds like they're advertising it. Like,
Well, let me
And
say
they're
too. All these kids are aware of the swag and like everybody talks about Oregon. Notre Dame to a certain degree has to, like they talk about the uniforms. Now they have the green, the blue, the white. I
right.
mean,
So it means something different. It's just a different kit for them to be wearing that week.
totally,
It doesn't mean the same thing that it meant.
yeah, that's probably fair.
Well, I didn't. I mean, with your question, Mike, I didn't know anything about the opposite sex when I was at Notre Dame, but that didn't prevent me from getting emotional and making all kinds of wrong decisions and losing my focus all the time. And so that's really what I'm talking about. Is
anything
it
changed?
what
Has anything changed?
what?
Has
Has
anything
anything
changed?
changed?
Oh God, no, it hasn't changed. I'm as lost now as ever. But it's I don't know. I mean, I like the added emotion if you can handle it. The thing is you don't want the young offensive line or Riley Leonard, who's really still trying to find his footing there at the quarterback position, working with the chemistry. You want them to settle down as soon as possible. And I think that's why the first quarter and in the first half is going to be important. I mean, Louisville, Notre Dame is a 6-point favorite. That's a heavy favorite.
Are
Uh,
we really?
so, oh yeah. So the geniuses
I'm
that put all,
surprised.
yeah. So that you talk about AI and analysis of these football games, it's all going into this game and Notre Dame, and I can see that. I think Notre Dame has better athletes than
Well,
Louisville.
yeah, I think if we play at the top of if we play to the best of our ability versus them playing to the best of their ability, then we're 6-point favorites. But as you
Right. But
know,
if the penalties and the turnovers, show up, then then Louisville is going to say, hey, you know what? We possibly can win this game again. And you're going to give them hope. And then you're going to get a completely different animal playing against you in the second half than you would if you were up 21-3 at halftime.
I agree.
Yeah,
Irish Nation, you're listening to Under the Golden Dome with your hosts, Frank Stamps, Wes Pritchett, Michael Stonebreaker, and our very special guest, the pride of Toledo St. John's, Dave Butler. And this episode is brought to you by N88D.com. Go to N88D.com, get your championship apparel there, and a portion of the proceeds benefit the NIL effort at Notre Dame, along with Holtz's Heroes. So, all right. We talked a little bit about Louisville. We talked a little bit about Miami. Can Notre Dame make the playoffs at the end of the year?
who are you asking?
I'm
I mean,
asking everybody.
yeah. I mean, I'll just start. I mean, clearly that they can. I actually don't think, um, you know, people are going to be very forgiving to Notre Dame after the NIU loss. So, like when they talk about teams having 2 losses, Notre Dame's not going to be afforded that opportunity. I don't think. It'll be interesting though, because we don't know who a lot of these teams are with all these transfers. Yeah, we just don't know. I mean, USC looked unbelievable at the beginning of the year.
Right.
Defense looked stalwart, quarterback A plus. That looked like the old USC. And then Michigan, you know,
Right.
snuck one by them. And so anyway, I 100% they could do it. I think actually this is the type of year, and Wes, I think you're going to the Georgia Alabama game like that. I think we'll learn something meaningful from that game. It'll be one of the first games you really try to figure out who's good. But I think it's going to be one of those years where you're going to see a lot of people with a lot of losses. I just think.
Well, here's the thing that I agree with you 100%, David. I think if this goes back to what we were talking about earlier, I think all the teams, it's not just Notre Dame. all of these teams are going to get better, I think, as the season goes on, because everybody's bringing in new guys. It doesn't matter where you are, especially the top programs, right? I mean,
Right.
it's like free agency in the NFL. I mean, everybody's going to have time to gel.
I
So
think, yeah,
lucky.
yeah. I think they make the playoffs. What are they taking? 12 teams?
Yeah, if Notre Dame wins out, they will have no problem making the playoff. The question,
I
I think,
agree.
what saying if Notre Dame has 2 losses, then they're going to have this whole analysis of all the teams with 2 losses, and they won't be very forgiving to Notre Dame because we lost to NIU. So
Right. It's gonna go back to strength of schedule, and I don't think you're gonna know that till the end of the season, because Notre Dame, after they beat A&M, it was like, oh, they're going to the playoffs. So, people were automatically marching them through because they had an easier schedule. But we're gonna have to wait and see if there are a lot of 2-loss teams. That means there are better teams out there, so you have to look at the end of the year what the strength of schedule was.
look, here's what the SEC is going to argue. They got 7 of the top 10 teams, or whatever the number is, 5 of the top 10 teams. They're going to say do you take a 2-loss SEC team versus a 2-loss Notre Dame team? I mean,
Exactly.
Reasonable, or a 2-loss Big Ten team. I mean, you look at these conferences now. I mean, think about the SEC with freaking Oklahoma and Texas. I mean, geez. And then you've got the Big Ten adds USC, UCLA, and Washington. I mean, those are power conferences. So,
Yeah, I think
Are they power conferences, or do they just play down to the level of their competition? SEC play, they only play SEC if they look good, but are they just playing SEC teams? You don't know how good they really are. They're garbage.
I like.
I think they would argue that's not the case with the SEC.
Yeah,
I mean,
but it's
I
changed.
hate to admit it. Listen, I'm not, I went to Notre Dame and I live in Atlanta. So it's like, God, I got to hear about the freaking Bulldogs all day long. So I think it'll be interesting this Saturday, though, going down to Tuscaloosa. I've never been to a game there and seeing what's
played down there.
I think I like the head coach at Alabama. I think he's got a great story. I think
I agree.
He's got a proven track record. I think Alabama's still got all the dudes. I
agree. He's a good coach.
He let them play music, and Saban had never let them play music at practice, and all the players were going nuts. So anyway, we'll see.
Yeah, well, that's good and bad.
I agree.
I wouldn't, if I was that guy, I wouldn't be changing too much that Nick Saban had established. Now, my relationship with Nick Saban goes back to my junior year in high school. He recruited me when he was at Michigan State, and then I played for him later on after Notre Dame. I'll tell you what, he's one of a kind. He and Lou Holtz, I mean, they are separated at birth. Those two cats, both from the same part of the world. Grew up with, a mindset. I think Holtz was really a disciple of Paul Brown, where attention to detail. We know that. I remember when he first showed up, threw me out of the huddle because I was, not the huddle, but the formation. We were at the line of scrimmage and, made me run a lap because I lined up a foot off alignment. What I'm getting at is that's the kind of stuff. He's letting them play music. I'm not saying that's going to be, their beginning at the end, but, you've got in college football, you've got to have, you got to keep that discipline and really keep that control of the team. And, if there's one thing I could wish upon Marcus Freeman is a little bit more discipline, a little bit more in your grill with these guys. Like, the unsportsmanlike conduct that happened right before the half, where I thought Notre Dame with a minute left could get that ball back. And they had just, scored twice. And I was looking for him to score again. And it wasn't simply because I laid the 28 points and I needed it. But I thought that's the kind of aggressive nature you have to play with. And then and number 8 was the guy. And it could be me, could be Stoney, certainly could be Wes and Dave. having that unsportsmanlike conduct. But nobody got in his grill. Nobody said anything to him when he came off the field. And it's not a 50 years ago thing. I
And
saw.
Did he play in the second half?
Well, I don't know if he did or not.
Because Holtz wouldn't allow. He would have been
right.
dressed already.
Yeah. But I saw I say it's not a 50-year ago because I saw the NIU coach getting his players grill when they came off the field. And I think we talked a little bit about accountability. I think you definitely have to have that accountability in all sports.
I was just going to say, I think that goes back to what we were talking about of raising the standard. And I think that is part of raising the standard, the accountability.
Well, I think he's got a standard in place. He's just not he's not holding them to it.
Well, frankly, I can't say that I know that either way. Like I know this, like he's everybody I want to be and everything I want my son to be. I mean, he's unbelievable guy. But one of the things we talked about, by the way, he's his first head coaching job. He's a young guy. Granted, he's our head coach. Like it is what it is. You got to deliver. But when we talked about the accountability, I think the magic that Coach Holtz brought was that he created the accountability in the locker room amongst the teammates. And if you remember, the first time he ever spoke to us when he came on that stage, Gene Corrigan got up and said, "Gentlemen, here's your next football coach." And here comes this man. By the way, no social media, no phones. We barely knew who he was. We knew he'd coached at Arkansas, Minnesota. And we're waiting for the, "Hey, great to be at Notre Dame, unbelievable tradition" speech. And he got up and said, "When I walk in the room, I want respect. Put your feet on the floor. All eyes are on me. No one speaks unless spoken to." Never said one word about Yeah, take your hats off. And by the way, didn't say one word about how great Notre Dame was or anything, just talked about what we had to do to win. And then remember, and I think this is the notion and where the culture of sort of self-accountability came from. He said, "We have no rules on this team. We have 3 principles. Do what's right, do your best, show others you care." Let me ask you a question. We don't have a curfew. You come home at 4 o'clock in the morning. Are you doing what's right? Are you doing your best? Are you showing your teammates you care? Abuse will lead to restriction, but you guys are in charge. And, we talked about it the other day, like that showed up at the most important moment when you're playing number 1 USC and your leading rusher and leading receiver showed up to a meeting late and you guys sent him home. He didn't send him home. He left it up to you guys. But that doesn't just happen. You know what I mean? Like that's I think they've got standards. I think they know the place is different. They expect a lot of these kids, but it's an easy thing to talk about. It's a hard thing to achieve, and he achieved.
It's walking the walk.
Yeah.
It is. And really, you look at today's game, I'd be hard pressed to name one coach in college football that would do that today. Urban Meyer had his chance to do that, I think, when he was coaching Ohio State before one of the national championship game. He had a chance to do that because he had some players that, weren't doing the right thing. And, they let him play. And I think, and Holtz was so much more than just a football coach. Those are principles that you and me and I Wes and maybe Mike share with our children. And what I try to do is a better person and follow those, because you got to hold yourself accountable, and it adds character. I
think what you're saying too is like, look, these are the right things, and we've established what they are, and there's no exception.
Yeah, that was clearly Coach Holtz.
You don't get a pass. You don't get a pass. It doesn't matter who you are. And let me tell you, like he said, and when you have the players enforcing that, and it didn't happen overnight. Remember also when Lou came in, we had all these great players when Jerry was there, but we weren't a close team. Remember when Lou would make us stand up and say something about ourselves, and then he encouraged us to go do things together? It took time for us to come together as a team. It didn't just happen overnight. but he changed the culture. He did. Totally.
100%.
Irish Nation, you're under the Golden Dome with Michael Stonebreaker, Wes Pritchett, Frank Stams, three linebackers that played for the '88 national championship team, and then our special guest, our mentor, our hero, the funniest guy in the history on the planet, Dave Butler, true Notre Dame guy. We talked a little Miami. We talked about, previewed a little bit Louisville. Notre Dame's a favorite at home this week at 6 points. Do you guys like them?
Yes, I think Notre Dame's going to come out, play strong. What game is this? 5th game of the year?
Yeah.
They're gonna, like I said, you've got a couple games under your belt. They're gonna come out. Offensive line's gonna fire off a little bit in the first quarter, start stronger, and the defense is gonna come through.
I agree with Mike. I think I watched the Louisville Georgia Tech game last week, and I think they're a good football team. I don't think they're a great football team. I think the Irish come out, they avoid the letdown like they did against NIU, and I think our offense continues to get better and the defense plays like they've been playing. So I like the Irish at home this week.
Dave, you're our guest picker this week.
The distinguished Dave Butler.
Well, yeah, no, that's it. Yeah, listen, I love Notre Dame. I love Notre Dame. I think, frankly, the defense is going to be the guys who set the tone today. I think Louisville's got a pretty nasty defense, and I think they're going to be coming after us big time. And like to your point earlier, Riley Leonard seems to be getting much more comfortable with that long ball.
Going to force him to throw the ball down the field.
Yeah, just reading the defenses, I think, but I think, I frankly think our defense in particular is going to have a breakout game. Like, I think the defense is going to score. I think we're going to have some turnovers and some sacks. Like, I think the defense is going to.
You're predicting a domination, Dave. It sounds like a defensive domination.
That's what I'm talking about. Double D's right there.
Oh yeah, now you're talking to double D's. And I'm going to break out, domination. And to Mike's point, I'm going to wear my leather for the game this week. But I'm with you guys. Notre Dame dominates. If anything, Notre Dame will give us the unexpected. And the defense is being consistent. I think they come out and they, like you said, Dave, they pressure the quarterback. They create turnovers. They give the offense good field position. They keep playing at a high level. They shut down Louisville. And then, I agree with Wes. They're going to come out. I agree with Mike. They're going to come out offensively. And the big thing is not to have Riley Leonard make mistakes. He doesn't have to win the game, but he can't make the mistakes that will cost you the game. And I don't think they do that. I think they win. They cover the 6. And, that's going to be a big notch in their belt going forward, getting that momentum and really to start making that run at the playoffs.
Yeah. Big time. No, I'm excited to see it. I mean, I think back to one of the reasons I was pretty negative on Caleb Williams as being the, number 1 pick. What we did to him last year at Notre Dame Stadium, I mean, he was so confused. I was like, this guy's going to struggle against NFL defenses because that's basically what he's playing against. But that's what I'm picturing this weekend versus Louisville.
I want to mention
blitzes.
I wanted to mention going into this game, Louisville, they open up with Austin Peay. They play Jacksonville State. They have a challenge. Wes, you were at that game last week at Georgia Tech, or you watched that game. But yeah, to your point, Dave, they're more unproven than I'm not saying Notre Dame's unproven, but I don't know how much they've been tested this year.
No, I totally agree with you.
What was the score of that Georgia Tech game?
Well, the Georgia Tech game was 31-19, but Tech was only down 5 points late in the fourth quarter and went to kick a field goal. They blocked it and ran it back for a touchdown.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it was a 10-point turnaround there at the end of the game.
Yeah.
Well, Dave, we're up against the hour. We want to thank you for joining Under the Golden Dome with Michael Stonebreaker, Wes Pritchett, Frank Stamms, your host. Anything you want to mention before we shut down the episode?
No, hey, listen, I just think same thing I tell kids that we're hiring. And I think this goes for the players, and I think it ultimately will show up on the field, is you went to Notre Dame for a reason. You, as Coach Freeman would say, you chose hard. You didn't take the easy path. You chose a higher standard, a more difficult path, hopefully more rewarding. And we think what comes with that, as you mentioned, is character. And so I think I think those things, everything that Notre Dame stands for, I think Freeman is fostering here. And I think it's just going to show up on the field. And I think importantly for us, selfishly, I think it shows up in our relationships too. The durability, we've been friends for, 35 years.
40.
Yeah, moving. Yeah, 40. You're right, 40 years. Like we've been friends for 40 years. And yeah, it's easy to be friends when you're in football and you're all rowing in the same boat. But when everyone takes their different path, we're still bound, I think, by the same things that brought us to Notre Dame, keep us together, that we believe in the same things. And we care a ton about the school, whether, in good times and bad, and what the school represents, not only for us and you guys personally and what it's meant in your life, but what it means to the world. I mean, at this time more than ever, having high standards and something that stands for something is pretty important. So anyway, I'm just psyched that you guys are doing this and that we got to spend some time together. Nobody I love and respect more than you guys, and I think it's cool that you're doing this. So anyway, appreciate you having me.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for having on. Thanks for being on. Wes, any parting words? Mike, any parting words before?
No, I just would just reiterate what Dave said. I mean, look, I showed up at Notre Dame as a barely 18-year-old kid with really no clue about life or the world or football or anything. And, by the time I left Notre Dame, I had created lifelong friendships. I had a playbook for life. And it's meant more to me. I think as I've gotten older, I hear myself saying the things to my kids that Coach Holt said to us. And I think if you look at the success, firstly, of all of our colleagues or guys that we played, teammates that we played with, it's been really impressive. And then I think all of our children have done incredibly well. I think we've actually turned out to be really good parents, and that's something I'm most proud of. I mean, listen to what I can see now. It's kind of like, now that I'm fast forward 40 years, I can see the whole reason these guys got into coaching, right? To make a difference in people's lives. So I'm fired up. I'm like you, Dave. It is a special place. It's not like anywhere else.
All right. Visit n88d.com. Huh?
Thank you, Stoney.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, David.
Yep. Thanks, Dave.
Irish fans, don't forget to visit n88d.com for your championship apparel. Portion of the purchase will go to Notre Dame's NIL effort and Holtz's Heroes Foundation. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Wes. Special thanks to Dave. Peace out until we're under the Golden Dome again next week. Go Irish.
All
Go
right,
Irish.
fellas. Go Irish.
Go Irish.